This is going to be the function that's been handed to you. You don't have to do anything to find this one. If f of x is equal to f of negative x, then you automatically know that this is going to be an even function. That original function that you were given is an even function because these two are equal to each other. However, if these two are equal to each other, f of negative x is the same thing as negative f of x, then you know that this is going to be an odd function, or it has symmetry with respect to the origin. I'd like to show you what it looks like to run this test. So run down here to number 56. Notice that I've been handed the original f of x. I don't have to do anything to get that. I want to compare f of x to f of negative x. I want to look at, are they the same or not? So if I find f of negative x, that means every time I see an x, I'm going to replace it with a negative x. Now in this example, I have a negative, first of all. I haven't done anything with that. I'm going to take out this x right here, not the negative, but just that x, and I'm going to replace it with a negative x. And I'm going to copy the fifth power, plus 2 times negative x raised to the third power minus 3 times negative x. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to simplify what I have. Now in this first term, on the inside I have 5 negatives, and on the outside I have 1 negative. That's a total of 6 negatives, and 6 negatives is an even number of negatives, so that's going to be a positive x to the fifth power. In the next term, I have 3 negatives on the inside and I have a positive on the outside. So 3 negatives makes a negative. It's going to be a negative 2x cubed. And my last term, I have 2 negatives, and we know that 2 negatives makes a positive, so this is going to be plus 3x. Now, when I take this line right here and I compare to my original, because that's what my test says to do, is use the original and compare it to f of negative x, I see that these two are not the same thing. So then the next thing I want to do is I want to go to the second part of my test. And the second part of my test says, take f of negative x, which I just found, and compare it to negative f of x. So I'm going to look for the negative f of x. Now the way I find this is quite very, very, very easy. Notice that f of x, that's the original. All you have to do is copy down the original, put it in parentheses, and put a negative out in front of it. So the original is negative x to the fifth plus 2x cubed minus 3x. Since I want the negative that, I'm just going to put it in a group and put a negative out front, and then I'll distribute. So a negative distributed to the first term is going to be a negative times a negative, and a negative times a negative is positive, x to the fifth. Take that negative and distribute to the next term. I'm going to have a negative 2x cubed. Negative distributed to the third term is going to be a positive 3x. Now if I take f of negative x, so that's what I found right here, and I compare it to negative f of x, I see that these two are identical to each other. And since they're identical to each other, I know that this is going to be an odd function. Checking on the directions, yes, I was asked for odd or even, so this is going to be an odd function. One more example, and this one I'm not going to walk all the way through it, but I'll just briefly take a look. And this is y-axis or origin symmetry. It's the exact same test though. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the original, which I've been handed, compare it to f of negative x. So I'm plugging in a negative x for each of my x's, and then I'm going to simplify. So that first term here has a total of 5 negatives. 5 negatives makes a positive. 5 negatives makes a negative. Sorry about that. The second term only has 2 negatives. It's positive. And the third term is just a negative 2. When I look and compare this to the original, they're the same. I don't have to run any further testing. I know that this is going to be an even function, which is not what I was asked for. I was asked for the symmetry. So not only is it an even function, but it has y-axis symmetry, which would be the final answer on that.